welcome to the 90s Mags podcast, a brand new podcast hosted by three lifelong Newcastle United fans. Going to be talking all things Newcastle United for your enjoyment. And I'm joined by my two legendary co-hosts. How you doing, guys? How you doing?
What
Good
up? What
man.
up?
Yeah. All
What's
right. So I
happening?
thought we start by introducing ourselves. But before I do, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Helps with the algorithm, helps us get more followers, more listeners, and share with your people, man. So without further ado, I'm D Man, and let's start with you, AC.
Sure. Nice to meet everyone. My name's AC. I am, wow, could say like a long time, lifetime supporter of Newcastle. And the other day I was trying to remember back when it first was. I think it was going back to the year or the season, shall I say, of 1992, 1993. Quite a big historic one when Newcastle were on the verge of getting promoted. And one of the key people in that team who helped that promotion was Andy Cole, no doubt. So got great fond memories of that season and from then, and that was it. And also I do remember around that time, I got quite big families, other family members and stuff were supporting other teams. And around that time, a friend of my dad's was supporting Newcastle, and the rest was history really. And here I am now, many, many, many years later, um, feeling a lot older, but still got the young baby face, still supporting Newcastle United, man.
Okay, Jefferson, how you going? How's it going?
Yo, yo, yo. Yeah, good to be in the house. Good to kick off. Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm quite defined the ages like AC and like yourself. But yeah, when you put it like that, you do think about it like it's pretty much lifelong. I remember supporting Newcastle from I think I was about 10, 11 years old. It was the 95-96 season. I do remember them in the seasons before. Obviously, Cole and Beardsley caught the eye. I remember having the Merlin sticker book, the black one for the 94-95 season, had Andy Cole on
Gosh,
the front.
remember that one?
Absolutely loved that. Loved that, and I liked Andy Cole. But I didn't actually pull the trigger on Newcastle until the following season. So I was actually more of a football neutral for quite a few years. And obviously, where I grew up, everyone supported sort of Chelsea, Man United,
Mm.
Arsenal, the typical teams. And obviously, I'm a rebel. I wanted to be different. And luckily, Newcastle were flying high them times. So I was called a glory hunter, even back then.
Without the glory.
Um, them ones. But yeah, I even remember the Aspria hat trick in the Champions League. And I remember going back to school, like just going on like Newcastle were the best team in the world. They were my everything. And yeah, still here.
Okay. Well, I've been a Newcastle fan since I think it's the 93-94 season. Me and my best friend's always wanted to be different, and that's when we really started to get into football. And we thought, okay, we need a team to support. So we didn't want to be glory hunters, so that ruled out the Man Uniteds, the Arsenals, the Liverpools. My dad was actually he's a Spurs fan, but his dad didn't follow football, so I said, okay, we're not going to do Spurs. And then we came across I was watching, I think it was ITV or something when they showed the old First Division, and I see this black brother just popping goals for fun, and I like this. I see him and Wolf. It was Andy Cole, and I thought, hold on a minute, don't know who this team is, but I like their style in it. So we decided to support them. Didn't know who they were at the time. Then later on found out it was Newcastle. So it was due to Andy Cole that I started supporting them, and then he went and left like I think 9 months later or something like that, which broke my heart. But then that's when the Celeste came in and that brought the I say the glory, but the good times, entertaining times. So you know
Mm.
from then it just took off, and we had some highs, some lows. But this podcast is all about Newcastle, our experience, and we're going to be reviewing the current team. But before we do, what's your just want to say what's your fondest memory if you had to pick one of Newcastle growing up, like excluding the late season or whatever, but growing up, what was your fondest memory? Let's start with Jefferson. What are you saying?
Yeah, I guess I gave a mention to that Barcelona win, but it's a weird one. You know, when you talked about highs and lows, I very much remember the 1998 FA Cup final. And again, I remember being in school being like, yo, we're gonna win the cup. You know what I mean? We're going to Wembley. And I remember it was just a big occasion seeing them walk out there, and I was so, so proud of my team. But in typical Newcastle fashion, obviously I was gutted. I was pretty much in tears when we didn't win it. But that was a big memory. Like that's what made me feel like wow. Because obviously growing up, you got so used to seeing the same teams play at Wembley, and seeing us there was like wow. It's a big, big thing for me at the time.
Okay. Mine was when we beat Man United 5-0. After the pain of like losing the lead, them the 12-point lead and all of that, and the famous Kevin Keegan rant. Um, and then we've gone and then we've beaten them 5-0. I remember I didn't actually watch the game live. I was at a christening, and this is before you had like updates on your phone and all the things there. So I had to wait till I got home and watch it. I recorded it, so I didn't know what the score was. So I watched the game back like from minute 1 to 90, and I could not believe what was happening. And with the fifth goal, and it's got the put it on the sky in it, and he's got Philip Albert. Oh, when he's chipped Schmeichel. I thought, yeah, that's one of my fondest memories. But yeah, what are you, AC?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. It's quite obvious sometimes to pick out the notorious games, like you said, Jefferson, the Barcelona, the Asprilla days, and think about entertainers and those key moments there. But then I think about games once again. It's that experience of sometimes just watching that game live, whether it would be at a friend's house or you're in the pub or whatever. And my mind does always go back to that era when we had Cisse up front, we had Demba Ba, that particular season, and when we ended that season against Chelsea, that game was. I remember watching with a friend, and he just couldn't believe what he was seeing. That up to this day, it continues to get clipped on shared on social media of Cisse scoring that goal. That his brace, let's say, was it's just it's still breathtaking to this moment. But just thinking about that era as well and that particular squad, it was some of the best days. And obviously it's a weird one as well because it almost like tongue in cheek because in them particular days as well, it was Pardew as well, which is
Yeah, but that team, I agree, because you know what? Funny enough, that team there, that's the first time I went to St James's to see Newcastle live. And I think one of the games towards the end of the season, I think they played Stoke and they beat them 3-0 or something. And that was
yeah,
when
yeah,
Cisse, Bar, Ben Arfa, and
yeah.
all them players. Oh, that they played some great football. I was gonna say, what was your best era? Was it the Keegan, Robson, or the Pardew days? What would you pick? Which one would you pick?
Because I actually managed to see of quite a few games with the Pardew era actually. I remember distinctively sitting quite close to actually where the guys were sitting on the bench, and it was actually at Southampton. It was an away game. And then back in those days, me and my friend we used to call them like nosebleed seats because you're like so close to the energy. I remember being that and Pardew just looking frustrated as usual. Um, I think the Pardew era was good because it is also what I like to call as well part of that French Revolution. We had a lot of French players, a lot of great French players. Think about players like Gouffron as well, and like you said, Ben Arthur. That was such a good era, and I could still have favorites as well for the entertainers era as well, which is still a great one because that was very memorable. But obviously, I can't speak about this and not mention about Bobby Robson as well, and what a fantastic manager he was, and continues to be so. It's the guy we still look up to, and the statues up front of the stadium for a reason.
Mhm.
But it's quite hard to pinpoint it. But I think just thinking about obviously myself being able to go into games as well at a particular age, the Pardew era is quite special.
Okay, Jefferson, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's got to be Sir Bobby, absolute legend, legend for England, let alone, our beloved tune. Yeah, because, we were up there. We were up there, and we had some young talent as well. And Shearer was banging him in at the time. You know, we had Bellamy, we had Genius, and obviously like Laurent Robert. You know, I don't think I've seen a
Kieran
left
Dyer.
foot like that. Kieran Dyer, before obviously, after that we know what happened with Souness and he ripped that team up. But under Sir Bobby, we
Sour.
were playing fantastic football. We were back. We were back. We were back. And we know that was a mistake to let him go. Borders too harsh, and who knows what could have happened from there. But
Okay.
yeah, those were the days.
And without to put a dampener on it, like if you had to pick, it's hard to pick a particular game, but a particular moment maybe, because I've got a particular game, but a particular moment where Newcastle just crushed your soul. Like what or a result that crushed you. Does anyone stick out any memories? Because I can tell you mine.
Boy, one that sticks out for me is the FA Cup semi-final in 2000. From what I remember, I'm sure Rob Lee, one of my favorite players, Rob Lee scored. We forced it into extra time, and then I think Poyet got the winner. And I honestly feel if we'd got to the final, we would have beat Villa. That was the final FA Cup final at Wembley. And we would have got to Wembley we kind of got to Wembley 3 years in a row, but obviously that was the semi-final, not the final.
Yeah.
That one stuck for me because I really think we could have won it that year, like legitimately.
Okay. I'm gonna say that the first 4-3 against Liverpool. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is, my brother's a Liverpool fan, so it made it even worse. But I remember I remember that the commentary for the final goal, the Barnes rush, and they got Colin Moore closing in, and Kevin Keegan hangs his head, and all that nonsense that rings in my head. And then the worst thing about it, that I think that's the only time that Newcastle had me in tears. Yeah. And my dad and my brother were just ridiculing me. And then the worst thing about it is, from then I thought I'm not going to watch Newcastle for a while, because I thought I was convinced I was bad luck when I watched them. And then the following season, it was 4-3 again. Now imagine we went 3-0 down, and then we got it to 3-3. And I didn't watch the game. It was 3-0. Wasn't watching the game. Got to 3-3. I thought, right, let me just come down and watch the last few minutes of the game. And then what happens? They scored again. I was like, nah. And then I just convinced myself I was bad luck. Bad luck watching Newcastle. So whenever they was on the TV, I didn't watch them. I had to watch the highlights. But for years. But got over that soon enough. But what about you, AC?
Yeah, this is when it starts feeling quite bad, because it's almost like there's quite a few memories where you feel like Newcastle just didn't quite get it over the line. And man, I even think about the recent things what happened even last season with the Carabao Cup final with Man United. Up to this day, I kind of feel like it felt so destined. It felt like the stars were aligned and we should have won that. And looking back at it, I don't know, it just wasn't our day and it just didn't turn up. But I think we're also going to talk about this, the season's just finished, but, there's some real moments I don't know, replaying the things in my mind with the PSG game and looking at the moments as well against Milan where Almiron just didn't use his right foot. But, there's some small highlights, but I feel like there's definitely some recent things where I feel like we should have just done the job and got the job done. And unfortunately, just the small minor things just didn't help us. And here we are now, just looking at it now, almost like a distant memory.
Yeah, onwards and upwards. I think we're a lot more positive camp. Had our ups and downs, but we've been to 2 relegations, and now we're competing for Europe now. So got to be a bit more positive now, I suppose, isn't it? But
yeah.
Which brings us to the current day. Talk about the season gone. Happy overall, happy.
AC, don't you love the way D-Man done that? He took us to like dream worlds. You know what I mean? You know them ones where you relive your childhood and you're on a high and it's like
bring it back down to reality.
Back to reality.
But it depends how you look at it, innit? Like,
yeah.
it tells, are you glass half full, half empty, given how the season's gone? Like, we're gonna talk about Eddie Howe. We're gonna talk about the transfers that
Yeah.
we've done and that. But let's start from the beginning, right? So
Yeah.
let's take it back. Obviously, when Eddie Howe he came in under like difficult circumstances. We were fighting relegation.
Hmm.
We know what happened that season. Great end to the season. Finished in the top half, I believe. And obviously, we know what happened last season. Great season. Ended up finishing fourth, qualified for the Champions League. What was your expectations after how we finished last season, going into this season? Because we had Champions League football, just come off the back of a cup final. What was your expectations?
I think for me, I knew this season was going to be tough just because you're going to be underneath those Champions League floodlights. It's different energy, man. It's different energy. And it all kind of does stem back to that summer window where, I was excited. I think the energy of like Tonali, just taking us miles back, but just before obviously knew that, he was going to be banned and such. And our first games against Villa, that home game, that was just such a good start to the season.
So
And
did
it
you
gave,
think? Given who we bought, so we bought Tonali, we bought Barnes, we
mm,
bought Livramento, Hall,
Hall as well, yeah.
and do we bring anyone else?
Minte, but we sent him straight on loan.
Straight on loan, right? So given those transfers, did you think we had done enough, or did you think there was other positions we need strengthening? Like, what would you think?
Boy, I think that right wing position has always been a sticking point for us. I know Almiron, I think he got 11 or 12 league goals last season, but we knew it was a purple patch, masking over the cracks. Um, and the likes of Musa Diaby, he was out there, and I don't understand why we didn't go for him. We've let him go to Villa. Um, I mean, one thing that although we actually scored more goals this season, the fact that we have both Isak and Wilson chipping in with goals. I think they got 30 goals in the league between them. It's always helpful when you're getting your goals from your wingers as well. So obviously we addressed that technically by having Gordon, you know. But Miggy, I think we all expected a drop off this season, so that needed to be addressed. I think the two key positions we knew that we needed was effectively a number 6 to liberate Bruno more, but obviously a right winger to really contribute some goals. And yeah, we didn't hit that.
See, this is what I didn't understand, because they bought Harvey Barnes and got rid of Saint Maximin, yeah. And all right, ASM didn't really fit Eddie Howe's style of play, with the press and tracking back and stuff like that. I get that. And he had a few injuries. Now, my issue was twofold. So first of all, Harvey Barnes, he tends to get injured, yeah. For the last couple of seasons, he tends to have a few injuries, some of them quite long term, yeah. He also plays on the left. Anthony Gordon plays on the left primarily, yeah. You've got Miggy Almiron, yeah, right, who, like I said, had a purple patch, but if you put it in perspective, I think Anthony Gordon has beaten his assists this season in Miggy's whole career that he's been here, right? Miggy Almiron, he cannot use his right foot. Yeah, he's very one-footed. Yeah, and he's
Mm,
very predictable. He looks for a 1-2 with Bruno and see if he can cut inside and do a little something. Other than that, you're clamping him out the game. So
mm,
that side needed strengthening. So if you're gonna buy a forward on the wings, why are you putting all your eggs in the left hand side? Because Joe Linton can play there, Gordon can play there, Willett can even play there, right? On the
true.
right, you've got Almiron and Murphy. And I like Murphy, but if you're gonna be pushing on and challenging, he's not the guy to start every game, right?
Mm,
So like I said, we was linked to the RB. And it's the same thing that happened with Madison and Szoboszlai. Like, we scoffed at the price or the wage or something and let them go join other clubs in the Premier League. and I think that cost us. So, and you're right, Jefferson. I think we needed a number 6. I think most fans would say we're screaming out for a number 6. All right, we got Tonali, who's not a bona fide number 6, but he can play the double pivot. It was all about how he blends with Bruno and whatnot. But even so, given all of that, I still was fairly confident in our season. I thought there would be a drop off like most fans would. To be fair, at the beginning of the season, I said anything in the top 8, I'd be happy with. Yeah, it's a decent season. That's what I said at the beginning of the season. We'll get to at the end of the season a bit later, but that's where I stood. That's where I stood in particular. So, um, would you not expecting? I know you were expecting a drop off. Were you expecting like top 6, or you expecting? What was you expecting?
To be honest with you, I think I see what you're saying in terms of top 8. To be honest, at the start of the season, I would have been pleased with 7th, but you know, them ones deep down inside, I'm thinking we're capable of 6th. You know, that's what I thought, because a lot of the predictions, you know, on YouTube, other channels had us ruled out, like Champions League's going to be too much for them, but I kind of believed in our set of lads. You know, I know that we've got the quality, and I thought, okay, there'll be a slight drop off. So I was in the sort of 6th/7th camp.
Okay. And AC, what were you thinking?
Yeah, I think originally I thought we could potentially get 6. I didn't think we'd definitely get Champions League again. And I think one of the things that kind of like definitely come on board this season is starting to understand that opposition was starting to really work out the way that we play. Because I think the season before, obviously, we were just stormtrooping through. And, you know, there were some drop offs from other teams around us, like Liverpool didn't have a great season. You know, there's a few other teams as well around us that allowed us to like get into that 4th position. But I think because you referenced on earlier about Almiron and his purple patch and such, and I think about, you know, that purple patch he was going through, it was generally because that Trippier and Almiron link up was working so well. But because other teams were starting to figure us out, they will obviously stop in that and start looking at other things as well. And because also I know I'm jumping quite ahead here talking about all these different aspects to the game here, but when we look at our formation as well, it was a 4-3-3, which Eddie Howe kind of likes to stick with. I think it became a little bit predictable, which kind of like stopped us progressing quite through. But I'm now mixing around here. I'm jumping around quite a bit, but going back to answer your like straight up question about positioning, yeah, I think 6 was. It could have been done. We could have got there, and especially in the last like month to go, I felt like we could have got it. We were so close.
So, all right, taking it back to the beginning though, like you mentioned earlier, we had the 5-1 against Aston Villa. Now, it seemed like everything went right in that game, right? And after that game finished, were you thinking, right, we're gonna take off from here now? We're gonna really kick on. This is gonna be our
I
season,
did.
you know.
We're gonna win the league, mate.
Listen, I think we were top. I think we were top on after the first round. Like Tonali scoring on his debut, Isak getting a brace and scoring that lovely chip. Yeah, we were playing some good football, and I think that was arguably our strongest team that we put out. And that team, and I genuinely believe if we had most of the players fit for the majority of the season, we would have got at least 5th, at least. Because I still think pound for pound, we're better than Villa, right? So 4th would probably be where we would finish, but hindsight's a wonderful thing, innit? But I think soon after that, then things started to, you know, especially the away form. Cause I remember we went away to Brighton, right, and we got absolutely slapped, embarrassed. Yeah, they could have beat us like 6 or 7, and Tonali was at fault for at least one of the goals, I think it was. And that's when you start thinking, right, away from home, we're gonna have to really fix up here, which we didn't for the remainder of the season. But we also had Champions League to contend with. Did you think that our squad was big enough to handle that? Did you think, given the group that we got drawn as well, Dortmund, Milan, and PSG, What were your thoughts in regards to the Champions League? How we'd fare in that?
So, taking my memories back of watching that draw, watching it live as well, because that was the first time I've watched the Champions League draw live. It's been a minute. It's been a while, mainly because we're not in it, right?
Yeah,
There's no reason to watch it.
it don't
So
concern us.
exactly, it doesn't concern us. So when I watched it and I saw those names pull in, I was just like, someone, it's either these balls have got different weight to them and someone's picking up the weights and putting these heavy balls into the bag, whatever. But now, jokes aside, I think, we knew it was going to be tough because the squad still needs a lot of work and we still got a lot of hangover from the Steve Bruce era. And we know we don't have 2 sets of 11 and we got a lot of players who, to be honest, at the end of their contract as well. And, it wasn't quite enough. And going back to the thing we mentioned about before about Barnes being on the left-hand side, the same as Gordon, I do wonder if Barnes never got injured, was Eddie Howe thinking that he eventually just wanted Gordon to play on the right, even though we know Gordon is best on the left side? Because you're right, the hindsight is a wonderful thing. The whole injury thing, I do think about now and again of just imagine if players that didn't get injured. And we had the most injury season, most than ever, unbelievable injuries coming through.
Isn't it
And
1,600 days or something combined?
Some man decide that.
and
The Man United fans trying to cheekily say that they've had more injuries than us, and I was like,
I think
nah.
the only one who could chat to us is Chelsea and Brighton, I think. But we were clear anyway in terms of days missed. Yeah.
So I kind of feel like we just wasn't quite prepared. But at the same time, I have to bring myself back to the energy. The Tonali energy was good, and I was like, this guy is gonna thrive in this team. You can see it, and it's just a real shame how obviously how things started developing and where we were. Let's say by December of it felt like the wheels were coming off a little bit. There was pressure on the team as well, and also a lot of these players were just ended up playing a lot of 90-minute games as well. So naturally, it started a decline on the squad as a whole.
Yeah, like I said, when we got that Champions League draw, part of me was so disappointed in the fact that you couldn't make it up, the level of difficulty that we'd had to face. But at the same time, it could have been worse. We could have got Real Madrid. We could have got I don't know, we could have got Barcelona. Could any other team? But you know what I mean. It was hard, but I still felt that we had a chance, right? And especially after we ground out the result against Milan at their place, and then obviously the PSG game was unreal when we slapped them at home. I think that's probably up there one of the greatest memories in the club's history, in my memory anyway. And after that, you're feeling kind of positive, but then, like you said, injuries started to set in. The Tonali situation happened, and I don't care anybody says, AC Milan knew what they were doing when they sold him to us. They knew. Yeah, obviously you can't prove it, but they knew because they didn't put up a fight to let him go. So
their captain as well at the time.
Their captain, their poster boy. They knew what was coming. Yeah, but we took the bait. But anyway, Tonali will come good next season anyway. So it's all good.
Man, I've got to ask you both though. What was the strategy? Because I'm sorry, AC, you know what I mean? I agree with you on a lot of stuff, but for me, the Tonali one, I was a bit skeptical about because in terms of the balance of the team, right? 55 million was a lot out of our budget in the last window. When there were other options available like Edson Alvarez, who we saw go for cheaper to West Ham, and Ibrahim Sangare that went to Forest. There were other legitimate DMF options because you could argue kind of what Tonali offers you, Bruno already offers you. It's just that we wanted Bruno higher up the pitch. And I think we'll talk about this later, but it's about Eddie's tactics. Yeah, you can't always have 3 number 8s with chaos running all over the pitch and running and pressing and closing down. You need someone to sit that can be creative, but also safeguard the
protect the back line,
the back 4. Yeah. So
do you think?
sorry, go on.
Do you think Tonali was an Eddie Howe signing? Because I to this day I think Tonali, Bruno. I don't think they were Eddie Howe. Isak, I do not think they were Eddie Howe signings. I really don't. So
There's definitely conspiracy theory here that there is obviously still bubbling this whole Ashworth thing, and I was just on Twitter earlier, and there's like new developments that apparently when he's on garden leave, he was talking to people.
he's a rogue, bro. He don't care, bro. He's a bad boy, bro. He just don't, he can't
Oh,
control himself. He cannot control himself. But
I
you know
don't know
what?
what's going on with him, but I do, because we have to go back into almost like look at the fundamentals or foundations of like what is Dan Ashworth's role at the club. He was obviously in charge of the scout system pretty much, and like having the scouts reporting to him, etc. And I got this theory that through his scouts and through what he was doing and the organizations here and the structure, people like Bruno, Isak, and Tonali, even Botman as well, might have come through that. I can't remember if Botman actually was before Ashworth or not, though. Might have been before.
Is it Nixon? Is that his
Yeah,
name?
Steve Nixon. Yeah,
Yeah, I think Steve Nixon. I think has been credited with a couple of those. I think particularly Isak.
yeah.
Okay,
I think Eddie Howe, to his credit, I think he wanted Anthony Gordon, and that's paid off. I think
that's definitely Eddie Howe signing, yeah, because
Howe,
that was I don't think there's a single fan out there who at the time was like, yeah, this is going to be a great signing. Everyone was scratching their head.
Yeah,
because everyone was a bit like, this guy, we're not sure with. But every time, that game we played against them was at Goodison, and we played against Everton, and he had beef with Fabian Schär and all that. And I was like, how are you going to bring this guy into our team? Like,
but I thought it was a waste of money. I remember when Chelsea went in for 50 million. I'm like, what do people see in this brother? All he does is run around and foul, and he scores about 3 or 4 goals. I thought this guy's a waste of money. But listen, credit to him. He's proved me wrong. I just hope it's not another Miguel Almiron situation where it says he's had a great season and he's failed off the season, bro. I really hope not.
I think Anthony Gordon is going to thrive, man. I think he's going to continue just doing what he's doing. And when I know you think you both seen it as well, when he did the interview and video with Gary Neville and the overlap, that just put in perspective as well how much of a player he is and how much he like really focuses on his craft. He takes the game seriously. And when I saw the interview, it brought me into a different limelight of like the type of player he is and type of person he is, the character he is. And also he just loves the club as well. So
yeah, fair play. So yeah, moving on through the season now. Obviously, we know about December. Like we had some shocking results. I remember that we played Luton, we played Bournemouth away. And we had played. I think we played Forest at home, innit? I remember
that was the one I was fuming, mate.
Embarrassing, absolutely embarrassing. Yeah,
Chris Wood's hat trick, get out of here.
Chris Wood was playing double agent, man. I'm telling you.
Remember that chance he missed against Sheffield Wednesday in the cup?
Yes,
that same guy.
Yeah,
that
man
same
on a mission.
Guy.
Yeah,
double agent. I'm telling you. The guy was in, that old cartoons with the Scooby Doo, and they reveal the mask, and it's like next man. You're like, huh? It was him all along. That's Chris Wood for you, man.
So given that the December that we had, right, and to be honest, Newcastle tend to flop in December anyway, especially around Christmas time. We always have these bad results. But
I know Boxing Day games have never been good for us.
Yeah, it's never been good.
Been good for us.
But given that, like, what was your thoughts going for the rest of the season? Because we were out of the Champions League, we're out of Europe altogether. Because obviously, I actually went to when we played Milan at home. I went to that game, and I just felt we were so naive in our play. After going 1-0 up, I think we could have got some. We should have won the game, but poor finishing and a bit of naivety cost us. Could say Milan experience.
2-1, not the 2-1 loss.
Was it 2-1? Yeah, was it 2-1?
Is that the one where
3-1? Was it 2-1 or 3-1? One of them, something like that. But yeah,
one where Joe Linton scored that belter.
Yeah,
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
he ran over
1-0
to
that
hide.
was.
Yeah.
yeah. That was, and then we had that spell when Trippier. I think that was going into January. We had a run of 4 games when he cost us every game, including the League Cup, the
Mm.
League Cup quarter final. Um, and
Chelsea.
actually, yeah, and I went to when we got beaten by Spurs. I actually went to that game as well, and he got ripped to shreds, man. Absolutely ripped to shreds. And we were dead on our feet as a team. We were dead on our feet anyway.
Mm,
We couldn't get Isak and Wilson to get playing together. If one was fit, the other one was out. Some games we're playing without a striker and stuff like that. So, given that period, coming out of that period, what were your expectations or thoughts about the team, Eddie Howe, and where we were going to finish at that point?
I thought we were done. And I'm gonna be real with you. I think the Forest one, I can't explain it to you how angry I was. I was actually angry. So I feel for the fans that were in the stadium that day. And I'm gonna be real with you. I thought it was time to have a real conversation about our manager. And that's not me throwing my toys out the pram because we'd gone on a bad run. It was, if you look back to when Eddie took over, we were difficult to beat. We got in people's faces. Can we swear on here?
Yeah,
Don't
go
matter.
on.
But we had a bit of shithousery about us, and it felt like we'd lost our gumption. We started to roll over on our bellies, and that I couldn't accept. We should
mm,
not be getting slapped up by relegation fodder teams. I don't care if we came back to draw against Luton. I don't care. Like, the goals were just flying in, and it's unacceptable. But the thing is, these things, as we discussed in our own little group, the goals were preventable in terms of Ilanga has pace, Dan Burn doesn't. Change the shape or change the personnel. That's
mm.
all you had to do. He was stubborn, too loyal, stuck with the same guy, and we got ripped. The only
Just quickly
difference
on that
is,
on that
also, go
one,
on,
when
go
you
on,
talk
go on.
about Dan Burn, I think I mentioned to you that before. Like, when even though we finished fourth last season, right? I don't know if you realize that when we started games, whoever we played, the right winger was targeting Dan Burn hard. And
Hard.
if it wasn't for Nick Pope, yeah, or bad finishing from the other team, we would have been 1-0 down so many games because he was getting ripped to shreds. So, and then what happened is after about 10 minutes, Eddie Howe would put double up with Joe Linton on and give him protection. I remember against Arsenal when we drew
Yeah.
0-0. Saka was ripping him to shreds in the first 7 minutes. And then Joe
Mm,
Linton had to come back and start bullying Saka, and that's when it made a difference. So this season, when all right, he came back from an injury. I think he had a back injury or something, and he got put into
yeah.
this. I
Yeah.
think he came back earlier than expected. But literally every game it was costing us because teams were targeting him. He looked as slow as he was running as slow as he looked. Like, it was bad. Like, they were twisting him inside and out. He was getting caught out of position. He couldn't get back. And like I said, they were punishing us. So the goals were preventable, but we weren't learning from our mistakes. Or whether it's Dan Burn or Eddie Howe, we weren't learning from our mistakes and we were getting punished.
That's
Mm.
the manager. The manager has to protect the player. We've all been there in Saturday League or Sunday League, right? You get hauled off. You got to protect the player.
Get hooked.
I kind of felt sorry for him at times.
Yeah, I did feel sorry for him, and it was one of those things where because we were just seeing it every game and looking back at it, and several things really, it made me realize, man, how much we miss Pope. Like, the guy did a lot, and the back to help Burn before, and it was quite evident with Dubravka, which we'll probably get into a bit later when talking about like player performances throughout the season and such. But yeah, and I think there's a lot of questions to be asked, and I think most people in the fan base, people who are obviously watching closely on that season, people were just calling out for like Lewis Hall, just like, where is he? Like, we need some, or at least change the shape a little bit, because once again, like I said before, when we stuck to that 4-3-3, and I'm telling you, man, because these teams were just working us out, they were just like, they knew our formation, they knew how we're going to approach things. And, you know, I know we're going to get into it later on in the season, but there was a monumental piece in the season where Eddie Howe did change the shape. And it was like one of our great home wins of that season, which almost become a monumental bit where we just like started shifting a little bit of direction, and that was also in that game when we played against Spurs. But to be honest, I think we like playing against Spurs at home anyway. I think
What's the aggregate score? Isn't it like 10-1 or something?
Yeah.
I think we love playing Spurs at home.
10-2. I think it's 10. No, it's 10-1. You might be 10-1. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, we love playing against Spurs. But yeah, it's quite funny because obviously later down the season with Dan Burn, and I'm jumping around a bit to the later part of the season, but he started actually playing in a centre back position on the left hand side. He looks better suited there as well. But yeah, I kind of felt like, especially after, I remember there was a bit when he must have played at least 4 games of left back, and like you said, it was just like every game was difficult for him. At a particular point, Eddie Howe should have just at least twice switch the formation or just try a different player there at the same time.
Can I add to that point real quick? The thing is, we'll probably have people watching this that have played 5 aside, that have played 7 aside. I'm sure there's a few that have played 11 aside, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if you guys have played 11 aside. I'm sure you have at some point. If you've actually been one of them 3 people in midfield, do you know how hard that is? Solid running for 90 minutes. You know them ones there, and you're gasping for air. So imagine that where, do you remember there were some games in that winter period we had 1 sub? There were sometimes we had none.
Yeah.
We had 3 goalkeepers on the bench and stuff like that.
And
Academy
pure
players.
youngsters. Yeah.
And it's like, what Eddie had to do is, at the very least, if you're not going to change the personnel, change the shape. Remember them days under Rafa, keep it compact. That's all he had to do. And it's like, it took him 15 games or something like that to work it out. And I think that's something we've got to think about. Do we have capacity for a coach that is learning on the job? Because it's costing us. And I ain't afraid to say that. Do you know what I mean?
We're saying Eddie out.
Well, listen, I know there's overwhelming calls for him to stay in. So do I want to be villain number 1? No. But what I would say is give him the first 10 games of the season. And if there's no improvement, I'm sorry, but we're on a journey. He's a custodian, the same way we have prime ministers or bosses elsewhere. They're a custodian. They're not going to be there forever. We need to think about the club and the betterment of the club. We're on a journey, and we want that trajectory to go upwards, not stagnate or go down. So if there's no improvement, I think he's going to have to go.
And on the flip side, do we have to give him some credit for good bottom line? Listen, we finished 7th, which isn't the end of the world. 7th end of the world, given the injuries that we've had. And he's given, he's played Lewis Miley. He's been one of the bright spots for our season. He's improved Anthony Gordon, the phenomenal season that he's had. Isak's improved. Whether his natural ability, you can decide is but he, 21, was it 21 league goals or something like that he got?
21 and 25 in all comps, I think.
You know what I mean? So, Lewis Hall's come on end of the season, and he's looked like he's ready to go next season. So it's not all doom and gloom, and we have to give him some props for what he's achieved, and under tough circumstances, right? With the injuries, would you say it's predominantly bad luck, or there's more to it than, like internally in terms of the way we train, the way the medical staff and stuff like that? Does that need to be looked at, or is it just simply we've just been unlucky? Like, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I think it all needs to be looked at. It's, partly we can look at the management of like how he's obviously coaching the team and such. But the medical staff, we knew that I was at some point in the season, head of medical staff got sacked, for various reasons. And and I think there's a lot of like ingredients towards this, because when I analyze some of the management takes on this as well, like I said before, but the predictability of Eddie Howe, I think a lot of the things like the substitutions, Newcastle fans, we know that 65 minutes, Eddie Howe makes a substitution, right? He's not going to make a substitution, but in the first half, he's not going to make a substitution at half time. And there are numerous games where we could have changed the game, or we're leading at halftime, and we could just change things a little bit just to like keep our opposition on their toes. But they read the game and know that Eddie Howe's not going to adapt to it too much. But yeah, I do, on the flip side though, I do give credit to Eddie Howe because, one player in my mind, I always sticks out and I just think this guy has had such a change of career, and that is Joe Linton. And I know he's turned that brother into stardom, man.
Beast.
He's just like different player. And I think that is definitely one of Eddie Howe's key attributes, is that he can get the best out of players and take them to that next level. And and sometimes not a lot of managers can do that, to be honest. And that's definitely one of these things. But I think it's definitely right though to still look at Eddie Howe though and think that some management of the game, or the way we manage games as well, could be looked at, definitely. But there are definitely other players, not other players, sorry, but other people in the club that contribute to this team, the medical staff and such as well, rushing players back, forcing players to play with injury. But I know we were thin on ice there with the players as well. Like, there's no bench at times, and it was just ridiculous. But at some point, I was just like, we might as well just get academy players playing out here, because, with that thin on ice, something's got to be done, surely.
You know what? I was saying that during the season, but I take it back after seeing that pre-season game when they got slapped 8-0.
Oh, hey, listen.
Jeez.
Yeah, that was disgraceful. That was disgraceful.
Oh gosh.
Just quickly going back to with Eddie Howe and that. I think he done very well given the circumstances. I think more of it is bad luck than training and the medical staff. However, the fact that we had Europe to contend with, I think he should probably have maybe tweaked a bit in that respect to help the players and stuff like that. And that comes with experience at the end of the day. So he'll learn next time we're in Europe, because obviously next season we've got one game a week, so there's no excuse.
Mm-hmm.
My main issue was when players started to come back, right? And you're constantly playing Sean Longstaff, right? In that midfield, when he's dropping stinker after stinker after stinker, right? He's been nothing short of an abomination, right? Now, Eddie Howe saying, oh, his performance ain't been to his level because he's carrying an injury. Well, if he's carrying an injury, don't play him, right? And what makes it even worse was when he's playing and he's starting and he's performing the worst out of all the midfielders, he's subbing everybody else apart from him. What sense does that make? So to me, does that come under blind loyalty? Like, what is it? Because that's one of the criticisms of him. Like, he's loyal to a fault. Like, playing Trippier when he should have dropped Trippier, right? Not dropping Dan Burn and playing Lewis Hall, and continuing to play Sean Longstaff. Like, these things he needs to learn from. He needs to be a bit more ruthless, yeah, in his team selections. I know they've been great servants and done so much to this point, but there comes a point when you think, all right, you're not performing. I don't care how good we are, how close we are. You're getting rested. You're getting benched for a couple of games, like, to get until you're ready to show that you're at that level. But we'll see if he learns from it next season, innit? But I was going to say before we move on, what were your main positives of this season? Because I know there was a lot of quite a bit of doom and gloom. But what was your positives? What's the ones that stick out for you? The times or the periods that stick out for you?
Do you want to go first, AC? Or
Positives. I think you did highlight it earlier, but our win against PSG at home, that was something else, man. And that will go down in the history books. Fabian Schär has his name in those books as well. He's been an outstanding player this season for us, and I continue to be a big fan of Fabian Schär. And I also want to give a shout out to Bruno Gomes, Mr. Bruno G. The guy relentlessly puts in a shift in for this club, and we all know he was on thin ice so thin it was paper thin. Ooh. Right? You can see the cracks in the ice. Yeah, this ain't the regular ice, this is black ice too. Yeah, deadly. Break your back, break your neck, break every bone in your body kind of ice. And this guy kept skating on this ice for like 11 games. Wow. And didn't get a single yellow card that will force him to get a ban. because we knew that if he were to get banned and miss 2 games, it's almost like those 2 games he would miss, we would lose.
But we
Because
ain't won a game when he's been missing, have we?
no,
Yeah.
not at all, not at all.
Yeah.
So, you know, and people talk about players that wear their heart on their sleeve, but Bruno, man, he could go down my book as probably player of the season, because he's like, he can be in the background doing things, he can be very involved in the game, but that 11 games not getting a card was just ridiculous. And we know how aggressive he can be. We know he can shove Havertz in the back, and
Yeah,
we know
brother.
he can do those things.
He got lucky with a couple of them, but yeah. I think even against West Ham, he put one on Paqueta, I think it was.
Yeah, and that's his
Yeah.
friend. He's
That
just
was
like,
that was a wild game. That was the
Yeah.
madness those two were pulling.
Yeah.
Getting a bit worried that Bruno's involved in that scheme, you know.
Bruv,
I blooming
bruv.
hope not.
let's
You know what?
let's not.
Because certain times he's been trying to get booked. He's been trying
Listen.
to get booked. I'm like, nah, bro, please no.
Listen, we
Please.
don't know who's
That one
watching.
with
We don't know who's watching.
Jorginho, that was a bit. I was a bit like, what are you doing, bruv? You're trying to get yourself sent off here.
Anyway, we
He's
digress.
a
But
mad one.
AC, so would you say that Bruno was your player of the season?
I think so, because he continues. I think he just like performs every game, and sometimes he goes like in the background. And I go back to that 11 games where he just didn't get booked, and how he really helped us. And I think he cares so much for the club at times. And I know, legitly, I think our player of the season was gifted to Anthony Gordon in the end, who, don't get me wrong, was very prolific in the numerous goals and assists he did and his performance, and but I think, as I like to pick players who are almost just like not so much in the front limelight, but almost like sit a little bit behind in the background. I'm that kind of guy, so I like the underdog. So I feel like Bruno deserves to get the award from me of like player of the season.
Okay, Jefferson, who's your player?
Oh
And what's your
man,
standout moment?
I
Your
think
standout moment as
what I
well.
want to do just real quick before I touch on that is just, I don't want nobody watching thinking I'm some negative Norman. So I thought, yeah, I do think there were some positives in the season. Goals, it was filled with goals. Yes, we conceded a lot, but we blooming scored a lot. We hit over 100. I think it was 102 in all comps, and I think that's a massive plus. I think you guys mentioned Gordon. I mean, I think he went into an exclusive club where he got 10 plus goals and assists, a double, I think they called it. Obviously, the PSG win, smashing Sheffield United for 8, the Spurs win at home,
Yeah.
but the West Ham win at home, the 4-3.
Ooh.
Oh man, I remember screaming, running around my living room because I thought we were gone. And what I have to say is, in the adversity, yes, there were times that we did get blown out. And again, we talked about it, we were fuming. But actually, if you look over the whole season, there was team spirit. The team pulled together during tough times.
Definitely.
And we managed to pull out some results. And you talked about Bruno. Well, he's someone that had to put a shift in. But on top of that, he stepped up. And you think about, Forest away.
Yeah.
What was another one? Even on the final day, if you look at Brentford, we were quite lethargic, but his 2 assists, I mean, he puts it on a plate for Barnes, didn't he?
Yeah.
And then slides it through for Isak as well.
Mm.
He's a difference maker. He gets criticised for not doing it enough, but I feel like this season he did step up. And yeah, obviously the emergence of Lewis Hall and Lewis Miley. I think Lewis Miley, some really mature, I use that word, mature performances, because
Yeah.
that boy belied his years. He was playing like a 23-year-old, 24-year-old season player. But yeah, I think the team spirit is big. My player of the season, I'm probably going to stick with Anthony Gordon, for some of the reasons we mentioned before. How he appeared at Everton. Even when he came, you think back to that Brentford game when he got substituted. Man had bravery to chuck it with Eddie, to be like, yo, what are you taking me off for? Big price tag and all, but he's lived up to it this season. He's also chipped in with some really, really important goal contributions and carrying that burden that Isak's had, because man like Callum's been injured, so we got
Yeah.
to give him props for that.
So
Yeah, I just want to quickly say and highlight as well Gordon's goal against City, and I think it was the cup game. That was
no, it was the league game.
was
League
it a
game.
league game?
We
It
lost
was a league
3-2.
game.
Yeah, the league game. Yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was. That's the same goal as what Isak scored that goal as well.
You know, I was gonna say, you know what? Everyone raves about that Gordon goal. Don't get me wrong, bad. I prefer Isak's goal. You know, I think Isak's goal against City that in the same game. I think that was better. But that's just my personal opinion. But I will say that the highlights for me was the Spurs game, especially after the points we put at their place. I think the Spurs game, obviously PSG, and obviously slapping Sheffield United. But that Spurs game was the one for me when I really enjoyed. But also, you mentioned the West Ham game. Um, I was thinking to myself, similarly to and also when we played Brentford, right? Harvey Barnes, he scored those important goals, or an important goal, the winner against West Ham, and then he scored on the last game of the season against Brentford, right? Anthony Gordon scored in the last game of the season away from home against Chelsea last season, and he said that's what gave him confidence going into the new season. So I'm hoping Harvey Barnes has got that similar trajectory, and he could be a key player for us next season, right? Which leads before I go, Isak is my player of the season, by the way. I think that guy's highlight reel and the amount of goals he scored, since he's been here, bro. The highlight reel that this guy's put on, listen. And you've seen the one where they put him next to Thierry Henry, the similar goals that they score and that. Have you seen that one?
Yeah, man.
Listen, he's the crown jewel for me. But
You know, now you say that, I feel like changing my answer.
yeah,
These are
it's
bad
all good. But that brings me on to the last part of the podcast. So, how, in your opinion, how much did finishing seventh and missing out on European football hurt us? And where do we need to strengthen? And what's your expectations for next season?
D-Man's trying to make me a villain out here with these questions, you know. I'm gonna let AC go first.
So the impact on not finishing for Europe. First of all, we could probably address it right now. The elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is the fact that, you know, summer window has started and it's still early. Don't get me wrong. Things could still happen, still could be kick. But when we look at our competitors, you know, our likes of Villa, Tottenham, Man United. I'm not going to classify City in this, and I'm not going to classify Arsenal in this. I probably could classify Liverpool in this. Those teams have the edge on us because they have the Euro positions, and therefore we might make it difficult to get some players over the line to sign. It is what it is. The Europe attraction to playing in Europe will attract players, and you know, but at the same time, though, I think, you know, at the moment we are on this project, and I think some players might still come to us to sell, you know, for this project. And where I think we potentially could finish with no European football now, so people, you like to think like less distractions and things like that, and one game a week. I'm gonna put it out there. And this is gonna be quite bold claims at this early stage. And obviously the summer window, I don't even know who's gonna come into this team at this stage. I think we could squeeze and get fourth again for Champions League.
With what? Not with what we've got now.
No. I'm thinking that, like, with additional players coming in, it really depends on like who else we get over the line to come into the squad and help us, and how much squad we're gonna have. But I don't know. I think it's wild predictions out here, but I think Villa's obviously going to be in Champions League, and I think they've got a good squad, obviously, but I don't think they're going to have the maintenance of like staying up in that top four. So we're going to expect to see City up there, obviously. We're going to see Arsenal in there. I don't think you're going to. Tottenham might be floating around there, but they might be inconsistent. So we could be floating around fourth or fifth. That's my final answer.
Okay. Well, before I let Jefferson go, 'cause I know you've got a lot to say on this one. But first of all, we fumbled the bag come at the end of the season, because those last three games that we had, Brighton at home, Man United away, and Brentford away, right? you would have expected to. I would expect to take at least 7 points from that, right? Because Brighton at home we should be beating with the injuries that they had and the fact that we're at home, we should have beaten them. Yeah, Man United are trash. Yeah, they have been trash all season, right? And going to Old Trafford, we should have played Pope. We should have played Joe Linton. Yeah, uh, I think we win that game if we do, right? But for some reason he chose not to. Fair enough. Yeah. Then we beat Brentford. So then we've gone into the end of the season having to rely on Man City beating Man United, which let's be honest, we thought would happen, but this is the FA Cup. Manchester Derby is just typical in it. Yeah. But we shouldn't have to rely on another team. We were in a position to let Chelsea finish above us as well. That was ridiculous. However, so going into the
I
summer
forgot
transfer
about
window,
Chelsea. I forgot about Chelsea earlier. Go
yeah,
on,
exactly.
continue.
Because well, listen, they're going to be teething our targets from here on out now. It seems like because we've lost out on Tolson, right? Which annoyed me because we were wooing him for how long, and then Chelsea come along, offer a bit more money, and he goes there. We're getting obviously Lloyd Kelly looks to be signing, which is not bad. We need defensive cover. And on a free transfer, you can't really sniff at that. And then we're bringing in James Trafford. Yeah. Now this is where you kind of have to raise a few questions, right? Because we were linked to this Mama Dashfully for so long, right? And now we've lost out on Tolson. We're not going for him. We're going for James Trafford. James Trafford is going to be Pope's understudy. Now I personally believe that Nick Pope is a good keeper, right? But is he that keeper to take us to that next level? Yeah. So listen, it's not bad as long as he can stay fit as well. 'Cause remember, he's coming off a dislocated shoulder, right? And he's had injuries before. He's the wrong side of 30 now. So is James? Listen, James Trafford had a good Euro, under 21 Euros the summer before, whatever.
Yeah.
When he's saving penalties and that. Listen, he's not a bad keeper, but it looks like we're doing this thing where we're looking at young players that's going to be good in 2 or 3, 4 years time. When really and truly we should be buying experienced players and trying to push on now. But listen, like I said, we're still at the beginning of the window. We do need another striker. I do think, as much as I like Callum Wilson, I rate him. I think he's one of the best strikers in the league. He can't stay fit, right? And again, I think he's got like a year left on his contract, and he's in his 30s. We need to cash in on him, cash in on Longstaff, which doesn't seem likely, but also Miguel Miron. Yeah, he's number one. Has to leave. He has to leave, and we have to strengthen in that position. If we don't strengthen in a right winger, another centre back, and probably a centre midfielder, then I think we're going to face similar problems that we have this season. And we're not going to kick on. I'm hearing stuff like Willock might be sold. Why are we selling Willock for? Why are we selling Willock? Willock is a baller. Yeah, don't know he had injuries this season, but if I see him sold and Longstaff stays, I'm gonna lose it, bro. I'm gonna lose it. Yeah. So we need to see how ruthless Eddie Howe and the board are now. Yeah, because I don't think the Saudis are gonna stand for much more like mediocre. Not saying mediocrity, but not bigger progression, should I say? So it's a big summer and a big season ahead for Eddie Howe. He's got enough credit in the bank to have the next season, but we need to see an improvement there. No excuse of injuries now, yeah, and we need to see some tactical flexibility. So
Yeah.
I'll be backing him, and I hope we know what we're doing in that transfer market because we've got this Dan Ashworth saga hanging over our head. Can't get a director of football, it seems. We've been rejected by Dougie Friedman. So let's
It's
see what.
embarrassing, though, D-man. Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. You just said we got rejected by Dougie. We've been rejected by Tosin. Yeah. And no disrespect, Dougie's done a decent job at Palace. We've seen like Wharton come through and stuff like that. Some good signings, Munoz and stuff. But at the end of the day, we're trying to get someone from Palace and they've rejected us. Yeah. Look at Tosin. Now, no disrespect to Tosin, but Fulham are a mid-table club. And in fact, they finished, 14th, 13th? So we're trying to sign a centre-back from a team that finished 13th. And man rejects us, even though we offer him top dollar as well. That's embarrassing. I don't know how you guys felt. I felt embarrassed. And
It
I'm
is.
not going to criticize fans, but fans saying, oh, well, he's missing out. No, because guess what? My man's playing in Europe and we're not. So I think
Yeah.
we've got to face facts that it's a failure. I know we had the injuries and stuff, but the maddest thing is, you not talk about AC. You mentioned top four. Do you know? I think we actually finished 8 points off the top four. So when we look back to those games and we're like, Eddie should have changed this, Eddie should have done that. It all adds up over the course of a season. We could have actually scraped it, believe it or not. We might have got away with it, but that sixth was in our hands in those final 3 league games. But ultimately, relying on another team to beat another team in the cup to get through, when we had it in our hands, that's the thing. It's a failure, and so we're reaping the rewards of, well, we're reaping what we sow now. In terms of, we're getting rejections from mid-table players, and we're also targeting mid-table players. Why are we linked with Dominic Calvert-Lewin?
Oh,
We're signing
Well,
Lloyd Kelly like we're meant to be happy with it. Don't get me wrong. Yes, I think he fits into the squad, but let's be real. When the board came in, we knew the desperate situation. Yeah, what we had to do to stay up, and that's why we signed the likes of Matt Target, Chris
mhm.
Wood, all that business. They're not showbiz signings. They were signings to get us over the line. Guess what? We've done that. We've been there, done that, and the trajectory was upwards. We've gone backwards. We have to accept that. I remember, I think Alex said it on the True Faith podcast, and I was clapping because it's the truth that, I'm sorry, some fans don't want to hear. We've gone backwards. So I want us to show some ambition this summer. Now, I know it's a bit of a contradiction because we haven't finished in Europe, and it's going to be challenging to sign some of these top players. You mentioned Mamadashvili, um, but at least show that ambition. Stop lowballing ourselves. Why are we going for Trafford, a keeper who conceded over, I think it was 60 goals in 28 games, got dropped,
got
and he
dropped.
wasn't even the first team keeper. And all I keep hearing is, he's got talent. We haven't got time for that. We need to compete
Mm.
with these teams that are above us. So, every time we waste spending our resources trying to accrue players that aren't at the level we need to push up, the gap's only going to get bigger. If
Yeah.
we are doing all this stuff off the pitch to increase the revenue, let's bloody spend the money, man. Just do it. Just do
Yeah.
it.
I
Let's
think
go.
I think one of the points that is leading to all of this, which is connected to all of this, is at the moment we have no director of football. And I think it's the missing link. Because at the moment, for what we understand, when it comes to the transfer business, it's almost just led by Eddie Howe and the coaching staff that's around him at the moment. And, obviously
They
we're
want
just on this.
runners. They want runners and athletes.
And, at the moment, I think Amanda and co are just almost just like, there's no other voice in the club to like have opinion or have like authority to look at that and be like how we're approaching things as a club. And director of football does a lot of overhead of not just that the first 11 or the main first team for the men's and women's and such, but also the reserves and the youth teams, the academy, all of that as well. 'Cause I saw earlier we're looking at some like Portsmouth player from the academy as well to come in. I'm just like, what's this about? But we're just gonna struggle. That the whole Europe thing is just like it's gonna really hinder us. And I think we have to say it as well that at the moment, I think about all the other managers, our competitors with their management. I
They're
think Eddie
winners.
Howe,
All the
They're
other all
winners,
the other
mate.
managers, they're winners. They've won trophies. Yeah,
yeah,
let's be honest.
Eddie Howe doesn't quite have the initial like pull to pull in a certain player. Now, I'm going to mention this manager's name, and he's definitely not going to come to the club now because he's got a new job somewhere else. But I, I know D-Man's not going to like this. But listen, there's a guy called, we all know this manager very well. He's very well known in the Premiership. He's managed several teams in that league already. But we're talking about Jose Mourinho. Where if there
Magpie.
was an alternative universe, right? It's not
I
this
don't want to
universe.
be there.
If it was an alternative universe and Jose Mourinho was to come in, step in, and in this situation as well with no Europe, he will pull players to come to the club. And
He'll pull that club to the ground, bruv. Listen,
it's,
leave. Listen, that brother, keep him as far away from my club as possible. But I feel like a little magpie. Of course you do, bro. You see pound signs and you want to join. Nah, no, 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 no. He's negative. He's divisive. He's prehistoric, man. His time's done. That's why he's in Turkey with them, man, in Fenerbahce and that, wherever he's gone.
Yeah, but
Nah.
I think we all know, like, Jose Mourinho, he likes to play the villain. He likes to play the underdog, right? Which I
Newcastle
think he'll be
don't
the
like to be
perfect fit for
underdogs, like to
Newcastle.
be villains, bro. Nah, bro. He'll bring a trophy and hell. That's what he'd bring, bro. Like, nah. By the time he leaves,
Hell.
this club's in flames. This club's in flames. Nah.
We need a trophy, man. We need a trophy.
Yeah,
But
is it worth it? I don't know.
But yeah, obviously, like I said, alternative universe. Now, going back into this current universe, with the three of us on this call right now, and the situation with the signings, I have to admit, it is a bit worrying that there's nothing, there's no actual rumors, except for the goalkeeper that we were kind of linked with, but that's disappeared now. But there's nothing really rumor-wise that gets you quite excited at
Excited.
the
Morgan
moment.
Gibbs White.
Thank
Morgan
you.
Gibbs White. What about Gibbs White?
Bruv, he's a 10. I know they're saying he could play right wing, but he's a 10. And that's the thing. If Eddie's rigid on his 4-3-3 formation, my man's going to be wasted. And again, there's no balance in the midfield. Why are you buying
Mm,
an attacking player? Unless he's
What,
planning to change his formation, maybe.
what
yeah,
about centre
go
back
on.
Connor Cody? I've heard we've been linked to Connor Cody.
Are you winding me up?
Nah.
The England cheerleader, yeah? He was called up to be cheerleader in the dressing room. That guy.
Yeah, him with his big head.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna drink my water.
I can't be asked anymore. If this is the case, I can't be asked. Honestly.
Yeah.
Do you know what it is as well? I don't know if you guys feel it, and I don't know if others feel it. For me, there's that desperation where we've had the Ashley years for so long, and I know people are like be humble, and all this stuff. Nah, I ain't being humble. I've already been through the strife all them years, and I feel like I
Depression, man.
want a
Depression.
reward now. Do you know what I mean? I want what everyone else has got. Let's push, innit? Let's push.
Mm,
It's like if it's
mm.
your children, would you send your children if you had the resources? Would you send your children if you could send them to private school? Would you send them to private school? Of course you would.
Yeah.
You wouldn't say no. Let's just go to this little school in the village. Let's count our pennies. Let's go to Iceland.
Mm.
Let's
Do
be
you know what I
grateful.
mean? Do you know what I mean? Who cares if nobody don't like us? Yeah,
Yeah,
people are gonna hate on us because of the money. Do you know what I mean? And Chelsea had that rep for time. I don't know why City don't really have that rep that Chelsea had.
Because
For being
no
money
one
bag.
cares about City, bro. Before Pep Guardiola,
True,
bro, no one cares about City, bro. Let's be honest, bro.
true.
Like,
But
yeah.
everyone hates on us, and I just think we're a little bit shook
yeah, but
to
the thing is,
really
you say
exert
everyone,
ourselves.
everyone hates on us, but the whole league hates us. I'm talking about the owners of the other clubs, the Spurs, the Liverpools, the Man United. They're the ones who've been championing these rules that have been hindering Newcastle to spend, especially Spurs at the forefront. Bruv, you got a cheek. You can't win anything anyway. But it's like they want to prevent us from breaking into that big six. So we're fighting an uphill battle. We'll get there. I'm convinced we'll get there, but it's just a case of when. And it is frustrating because we've got the money. That's why a lot of Newcastle fans are hoping that City win this court case, and in a couple of weeks, and we can start splashing the cash. And I think Newcastle's patiently waiting. One thing they did get right though was the new kit release that they did.
Hey,
Bad.
Yeah, and that's
Adidas,
also,
baby.
you can see in the background, Mr. Alexander Isak with
Yeah.
from the shoot there. Yeah, man, the Adidas launch is massive, man. I have to admit, man, it almost brought me to tears, man. I saw the advert and I saw the video, and I was just like, man,
They got it right.
we went through so much pain. Like, we went through so much, man.
Sports Direct. Yeah.
We went through so much.
We've all got Ashley merch on now.
Yeah, I know, it's
I know. We went through that era of, like,
You didn't have to bring that up, bro.
the kits have done so bad. Like, it's got a number 4 on the front with the stripes, and it mess up my head visually. It's my see the kit wearing. Like, we got kits that, like, I can't remember what year it was. There were some kits that people just complained it was just like falling to pieces, man, after like 2 washes and that. And I'm like, man, we're struggling out here.
We're in the big leagues, man. Don't worry about it. We're moving on.
But the
Enough.
Adidas
Yeah.
kit looks the business, man. And I got to give shout out to people to the club who obviously got that deal over the line, and we're looking quite prestige now. Looking good, man.
We got
Alright.
elite status as well. I think with Adidas as well. So it's going to be marketed like I think worldwide and all that stuff. So that's going to help us out big time.
Revenue.
That's it. All
Revenue.
about bringing in that money, boy. All that bringing that money.
So
But yeah, I think that's a good place to leave it for our first episode. So to you, the viewers and listeners, please like, comment, and subscribe. You can catch us on the Twitter, 90s Mags 1990. So that's 90S Mags 1990. We will be doing regular episodes. Won't say how often, but they're going to be quite regular. So I hope you enjoyed. But yeah, we'll leave it there. So for myself, D-Man, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.
thanks for watching, guys.